You've already talked about that book before.
Yeah, well, I pretty well finished it up.
Okay.
After each hiking season.
James is eating, well, he's eating an orange first because I stuck it in there. Cheerios. These are little heart-shaped ones with some chocolate milk, and I'm eating that there. And we're going to talk about Boardwalk Empire, and that has quite a lot in it. Let's see. We're making our way through it, and so we'll talk about it more later because this is only the volume 1, so this is 10 discs. So this takes you up to the end of season 2. So, but there's quite a lot of stuff in here. And honestly, I haven't looked it up yet to see whether. Oh, some of them are circles, not hearts, but it looks like most of them are hearts.
I think those might be the accidents. They are mutant hearts. What do you think?
Yeah. So I thought that was funny. You notice that I got both of these cereals on super clearance. Well, this one was regular price, 75% off the regular price, and that one was on sale, and then 75% off that. So, yeah. So I paid $1, I think $1.12 or something for that box of cereal.
Okay.
And $1.25 for this one. I can't remember if that's correct. But anyway, so last time we had a dinner. We were talking about, well, I was talking about King of Kings, the movie for children, and honestly, I do not think that children should be subjected to religion. I don't think they have to learn a lot before they can think critically and understand what they're reading once they finally decide to read it, and they will decide to read it. If that's what their parents are interested in or whatever, then they're going to look into it later on. But I also don't believe that anybody should step in and dictate how other people should raise their children. So, I don't know. But,
all within limits.
Yeah.
Barry Wilson, father of 60% of the Beach Boys. Someone should have intervened with that too.
Yeah, we were just watching that yesterday, so we're not reviewing that today though. But anyway, I just found it interesting, these Cheerios, because they have different. I got one box that says Aunty, you can see here, and another one that says Partner. And so they're brown Cheerios, and so I serve with chocolate milk, and I think they're trying to be politically correct or whatever, and say we support maybe regular Cheerios are a light beige color, and so they wanted to say, oh, we're not just like white people food or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. So I thought that was funny, but
people. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Do people say Aunty much?
Well, some people do. Like, apparently in many native cultures, the auntie, who may not be an auntie at all, just a friend of the mother, is a very important part of the family. So they're...
Yeah, so that's where I know it from.
That's where you know it from, too.
Yeah, one of my sisters lived on a reserve for the life. Their children would be more than 50% indigenous.
Yeah.
So I'm used to hearing that term.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah, I couldn't understand it. I'm reading the French, or I was reading French. Matin. What? Rome peut être heureux, which means make my heart happy.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, whatever, how does it taste?
Making my heart happy. So.
There you go. So it doesn't matter whether you're Cheerios or beige or brown. They're enjoyable, apparently. So So now
We're talking about Jesus.
we're talking about Jesus today.
See, I figured you would. You mentioned something about it. So I pulled this out.
What's
We're
that?
talking about Jesus looking freakily modern or something like that. There is Jehovah's Witness.
Oh,
I've reviewed this book before.
you have. Yes, you have.
So,
I remember you showing off some of the pictures.
yeah, there we go.
You're right, yeah.
Jesus
He has a short
Look at
haircut,
this.
ready for battle.
looks almost like Burt Reynolds in the 80s or something like that.
Yeah, well, probably whoever drew the illustrations just took it off of, decided, they'd make him into some Hollywood person or something.
Well, no, the issue is they couldn't make him look like a hippie. I think the Mormons are starting to do that too. Cut to his. Then Mormons have all sorts of pictures in there. Well, those ones are traditional, like a Mormon.
So, I'm not terribly comfortable talking about this, as, like you may have noticed, the last show where I talked about King of Kings, I wasn't terribly comfortable talking about it, because in the Bible, the whole point, Jesus is trying to teach people about forgiveness and the importance of love. And there's so many people out there that they really, there's a lot of, especially a lot of Christians or people who I guess consider themselves to be Christians, who really, really can't stand Judaism and, well, frankly, Jews of any kind. And this really spills into left-wing politics, which is strange because a lot of the people that are attacking from that side don't consider themselves to be Christians at all. So it's very strange. And so I was pointing out Jesus was Jewish, and James and I have talked about it before, the Old Testament being Jewish scriptures, Judaic scriptures. It's really not very much like the New Testament at all. And so I do have a family member that he's a part of a church, and his wife is one of my aunts. She married him. He's married into the family member. And he believes in, well, the church believes in, yes, they're really into both the New Testament and the Old Testament. And James was talking to him, and quite quickly it was clear that he did not realize that the Old Testament was Judaic scriptures. So there's a problem there. When even adult people, they believe themselves to be very devout, and they are uninformed about what they feel very strongly about. And James and I were talking about, there's an election coming, and people will say, you've got to get out and vote. And James says, you got to be informed. So there's no point voting if you don't know anything about who you're voting for, or what you're voting for, or whatever, right?
I don't want you canceling out my vote. I spend a lot of time and energy
So I was talking
trying to
with my
find out
angels,
about things.
and my angel said, yes, the Pharisees were villains. And I was like, okay, how can this be? Because, you can't get to the end of the Bible and go, man, I hate those Pharisees, because you have to be able to forgive and love. So how can you have hate in your heart when there is only love supposed to be there? So James and I were talking too, and James said, well, Jesus was like, when Jesus threw over tables and whatever, he went to the temple, he wasn't
He was mad.
he was mad.
I wouldn't say he was hating, but he was mad.
Yeah.
There's a difference.
Yeah. So, not always so peaceful, Jesus, right? And James said, so that teaching from Jesus teaches us that when you see something or someone behaving in a bad way, you have to have the courage to say something and to stand up for what's right. So, what do? Put it over to James, because I honestly, when it comes to the Bible, he's my go-to person. If I'm going to talk to somebody other than God for guidance, it will be James, because James has actually worked really hard to learn the Bible. He's read the Bible over and over and over in many different languages. That's how he learns different languages, primarily, is by reading the Bible in other languages, because he knows the Bible well. And he's read the Bible in the New Testament in original Greek, and he's read
I haven't gone all the way through.
Not all the way.
Over half the way through.
And he's read the Old Testament in Hebrew.
Not all of it, but
in classes, and probably outside of classes.
I've translated stuff for classes.
Yeah.
That's way more.
So he
intensive
really works to actually learn it. So whereas a lot of people, they haven't even worked hard enough to learn how to read it and understand it critically, read it critically in English, to actually understand what they're reading. So then what do? They go to minister or join a Bible studies class or whatever, and it's like, okay, but then you're getting it, it's best to go to primary sources as much as possible, and you don't necessarily want somebody's opinion, especially when they may not be very well informed either. So what do, right? So anyway, put it over to James. That's what because that's the best I can do, because I don't think I will ever learn Greek or Hebrew.
It's a long, hard road.
I know.
So yeah, I'm agreeing.
I respect the work that you do. So, talking about Boardwalk Empire, which I will talk more about later.
That wasn't a critical, unintended
no,
critical.
No, it wasn't.
Service.
I'm actually...
She thinks quite highly of it.
Yeah. This one was produced in part by Mark Wahlberg and in part by Martin Scorsese.
Wow, that's quite a combination.
They're doing the job. There's one thing, both James and I don't like the intro to the show where they play modern, well, not really modern, it sounds like, you're right, like the Byrds or something, like 60s. Rock and roll from the 60s or whatever. And I don't know what that's about. And it's a little long. I don't like long introductions. I don't like having to sit through them. It gets annoying. But I like the music and everything in the intro. It just doesn't seem to fit. So, but
no,
there's a lot of bad things here. A lot of bad people doing bad things. So, it's important to actually learn about it and talk about it.
So it's not about Monopoly, it's about the Mafia, right?
Yeah, it's about Boardwalk Empire. It's about people wanting to be king.
Of Atlantic City.
Yeah. So, but, I mean, there's other people in here. I've never heard of this Nucky Thompson, who is the guy in the middle that's played by, what's his name again?
You start with H?
No. Oh dear. Well, I like him as an actor. Anyway, can't think of his name right now, slipped my mind. But I imagine he must have been based on a real character, because, I mean, Al Capone's in there, and I've heard of him, but honestly, I know very little about the Mafia, and so James was talking about the Mafia lately, and I thought, okay, well, I'll get some stuff out on the Mafia. So but honestly, I'm gonna have to do some reading so that I know more about these characters or whatever, because I don't know. I think there's I don't tend to like the mafia stuff because, like James says, there's really no mystery there. You know, it's people like, I do watch crime mysteries, and there's certainly a lot of crime in this sort of stuff, but
no mystery.
No mystery.
Just killed someone, and like the mystery about Jimmy Hoffa, who was the head of the Teamsters Union in the United States, and I think he was pardoned, released somehow by Richard Nixon, but he ended up getting killed by his mafia buddies, presumably. Never found his body. Many people maintained he ended up being part of the foundation for Meadowlands Coliseum or something like that in New Jersey. Of course, this is about New Jersey, a different part of New Jersey, basically. Meadowlands might as well be part of New York, really. It's across the Hudson River from New York proper, and a little ways inland. So. Anyway, it's yeah, they will kill someone, chuck them in a dumpster. They own the company that or control in some way the company that picks up the dumpster, and then it gets dumped in a city dump or something like that, and no one knows any different. Even if a body turns up, you know, like no one wants to testify. Someone wants to testify, they don't get a chance to testify. Why? They get whacked. That's the way the mafia operates. And, it's really boring well, it's unthrilling in an exciting kind of way. I mean, it's hard not to get excited about the possibility of dying or whatever.
But honestly, I don't know how much of these stories are true, or how many of the characters are real, or any of that sort of stuff, because I mean, how would people know? It's not like they would have been documenting the stuff.
Well, you know, when Bugsy Siegel turns up dead, I think it's in Las Vegas, with a bullet through his eye. They only put one bullet in him, right in his eye. You figure it was them, that sort of stuff. If it was someone else getting revenge on it, well, that someone else would get killed by the mafia. It's just the way it operates. But you don't know necessarily which member of the mafia took him out.
Yeah.
There are lots of different families, and they tend to operate together. Oftentimes when it's a place like Las Vegas, traditionally, when they first moved into Las Vegas, it was several different families moving in there and kind of cooperating with each other, and so on and so forth. But there'll always be young pups who'll want to even kill the Godfather, you know, take over his operation or whatever. So there's all sorts of things can happen.
At one point in this, and we're hearing a lot of this sort of stuff lately about Catholicism. At one point, one of like Nucky's first mistress featured in this, she's talking to another woman. She's saying, well, sometimes he remembers that he's Catholic or something and has some guilt, and then I help him forget about all that, or something like that, right? So there's been a lot of talk about Catholics feeling so guilty or something, or having this, and it's
Guilt
like,
complex?
okay, well,
Wow.
How could that be? They're able to go in to talk to their priest and do their Hail Marys and whatever, and you're forgiven. Don't worry about it. Go on, whatever, right? And then they're back to confession next week or whatever, and that's just
It used to be worse. You used to be able to buy indulgences.
Yeah.
You wanted to kill
so
someone.
Honestly,
and
as far as
pay the church a certain amount of money, and then you were enabled to go into heaven.
So I can't understand, like, are people in the making movies and TV shows and whatever, Are you trying to say that, compare, like, say that Catholics feel more guilty and whatever, ridden with guilt than Protestants? I mean, that's ridiculous. So, or that Catholics are somehow more devout, or I don't know.
Well,
It's very weird
Tend not to be.
because that
they
seems to be the
don't-
opposite.
They don't know much about the scripture. Most Protestants don't, but
Yeah.
Catholics even worse. And they're more into liturgy. So liturgy would be like, like you go and you listen to a mass or something like that. You don't really participate by reading or whatever, studying. There's little of that. It's just you listen. You listen to some music.
But this features some very aggressive mob groups and, well, I guess
They're all
4
aggressive.
different cultures, mostly, in this.
Wow, what's the 4th? I'm going to name, like the main one in American history.
Well,
It
the
dates
one
back
that
to
bothered me the
1890s.
most in this show, I didn't like the Italian mafia.
Yeah, they're the worst. They were so
Terrible.
vicious.
Very
They took over
scary.
all the other ones, basically.
And,
And then they made their underlings the Irish and the Jewish. What's the 4th one? Black. Well, I was going to mention that. No, it was understood. Like, there was a guy called Joey Gallo, came later than these guys, who was going to be the kind of liaison between Italian mafia and black mafia and stuff like that. Ended up being maybe a bit of a hero to left-wing lunkheads like, well, Bob Dylan. He never has been very smart when it comes to politics and whatever, but he wrote a song about the leader of the Gallo gang, Joey. And it was Joey, Joey, like it sounds like a lament. What made them want to come to blow you away? Well, Joey was a bad guy, and if the song had been real, it would have been Joey answering, well, Bobby, I was a bad guy. I killed lots of people, and I deserve to get blown away.
So, one thing about the Bible, going back to that, is it's really, the New Testament is not, it's quite complicated, too complicated, and frankly it isn't interesting for a child.
It
Plain and
isn't
simple.
interesting to anyone who hasn't got the bug. It is boring, but I remember trying
But
to
it's
read
very
it as a
important to
kid.
read.
Yeah, it's important to read.
And it's important to read as an adult, when you actually have gotten enough education under your belt that you can
You
think
should
about
be
it.
able to.
Especially when you get to the end, or well, whatever. When you're reading about what happened after Jesus
Die.
died,
Yeah.
that you really have to be able to think critically about that. You have to read the Bible critically and think, okay, what could the lesson be in this exactly? Because, like, when I was a teenager and I finally realized it contradicts itself.
There are many
There-
contradictions in the New Testament.
This is, and then I was just at war with my dad because I guess maybe subconsciously I felt that I'd been lied to. I don't know, but
Well, it's not really lying. There's a lot of people who believe something, and they, I guess, I'm not going to say this about your dad, but there are lots of people, this on the left wing in particular, but who really believe the lies they tell themselves.
But in the Bible, it is, what is it, 3 different accounts
Of Jesus' life for Matthew,
Of-
Mark, Luke, John. Is that what you're
of when after he's risen.
I think one of them kind of curtails it, but yeah, there's minimum of 3.
Well,
And-
definitely 3
Yeah. So
So-
it is really, they're really,
that are very
when
different.
you're talking about right in the wake of his resurrection, we're going through it.
Yeah.
Like, who's the first to make it to the tomb? what does he, she, they see? What is said to them?
And so, really,
you'd
you-
have to be schizoid, not schizophrenic, but schizoid, like all split up, to be able to reconcile that. Go ahead.
unless you just go, okay, well,
Yeah, who cares? You know, I'm
people
going to heaven.
people make mistakes, or people see things that they maybe really want to believe that aren't there. And then it just breaks your heart, right? You read that and you go, oh.
It's very sad. You know, like the Jews knew that Jesus was predicting that he'd rise from the dead. And they told Pilate, it wasn't just to get Jesus crucified. They said, you set a guard in front of his tomb, because the Jews are going to steal, or the Christians are going to steal his body and then say he's risen. And, you know, Jesus had some sort of luck or whatever, because what happened when he's being crucified, this is what makes me believe that part of the crucifixion about things maybe not turning dark, but the veil of the temple, the curtain of the temple was rent, it was ripped. There was an earthquake when he was being crucified. And what happened, you know, like they say it's on the third day, but he's crucified Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He's resurrected, according to the account, early Sunday morning. So guess what happens when earthquakes hit? If they're big enough for people to get concerned, you get aftershocks. Even this last one that we had here in Alberta, there were aftershocks. We weren't feeling them, but stuff like that. And that's what happened to the stone. It got rolled away, and guess what? Someone came along. It wasn't the women. Someone came, they wouldn't have the strength to lug his body out of there. The women who discovered, at least one account, I think it's a couple, discovered they saw an angel there. I don't know what the angel would be. Angel just means messenger in Greek. And some Christian came along and stole the body. The soldiers would have got spooked, because they would have known about the prediction. You're there to make sure the Jews don't come and steal his body. You know, like there's one account, it might be true, I don't know if it's a centurion, leader of the soldiers. You know, when these weird sort of things happen when Jesus is being crucified, one of these Roman soldiers says something like, truly, this man was, I think, like the Son of God or something like that. You know, so the soldiers on guard would have been going, you know, like, this is an earthquake. They wouldn't have understood earthquakes then. People got to understand. And they're going, you know, they see the rock moving, they're going, what's inside of there? What's moving the rock? So they had it out of there.
All right, you have about 40 seconds
And
to wrap it up.
the account in the Bible, one of the Gospels says, many of the dead, you know, like believing dead or something like that, rose and walked. So, you know, like the tombs were, some of them would have been opened by this aftershock. There would have been a serious aftershock. This stuff happened, I'm sorry folks. You know, the Star of the East, it wasn't like 0 BC AD, it was 11 BC. Halley's Comet came stomping through that area, okay? I don't know if it's exactly the time Jesus was born, but it was correlated with that. So the Star of Bethlehem, it was a real star.